Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. Iran, historically called Persia, was never formally colonised by another power in the way that India, Algeria or large parts of Africa were under direct foreign rule. However, some historians describe Iran's modern experience as semi-colonial, a situation in which a formally independent state's economy, politics and foreign policy were heavily shaped by significant imperial pressure, foreign control of its economy, territorial losses and occupations without full annexation. These have helped shape its modern history and a modern Iranian political identity centred on national self-determination and opposition to external domination. Themes that resonate deeply in Iranian politics throughout the 20th century and beyond into the 21st. Despite centuries of foreign invasions and pressures, from the Arabs in the 7th century, Mongols and Turks, to modern imperial powers throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, Iran has kept its own sovereign governments and a distinct Persian Iranian culture and national identity, and has consistently re-emerged as an independent state after such disruptions. In the Qajar era, late 18th to early 20th century, Iran Qajar rulers granted economic privileges and concessions to foreign powers, for example in oil and tobacco, especially to Britain and Russia, in exchange for loans and technical assistance. These concessions were often made under pressure and on unfavourable terms for Iranian citizens, and included rights over infrastructure, resources and customs revenues, which eroded domestic control of the economy and revenue streams. Over the course of decades, these concessions weakened Iran's economy and sovereignty, sparking nationalistic resistant movements like the tobacco protest of 1891-92 and the Constitutional Revolution from 1905 to 1911. The revolution began with protests over economic grievances, including foreign control of customs revenue, notably a Belgian customs director appointed to collect tariffs, and the effects of foreign-dominated trade. This disrupted local commerce, hurting the interests of the merchant class and fueling political activism. These economic pressures, combined with resentment towards the Shah's concessions to foreign powers, helped coalesce a broad coalition of bazaar merchants, clerics, intellectuals and emerging middle classes, demanding constitutional limits on royal power and a representative legislature. The 1907 Anglo-Russian Convention divided Iran into zones: north under Russia and southeast under Britain. And during World War II, the rivalries between the Russian and British empires over influence in Asia actually worked to prevent either power from formally colonising Iran. Instead, these foreign army occupations did not establish a colonial administration in the formal sense, but sought to wield influence by treaties, concessions and through spheres of influence. This resulted in Iran suffering territorial losses when, following the Russian-Persian Wars, the treaties of Gulistan in 1813 and Turkmenchay in 1828 resulted in Iran losing vast amounts of territory north of the Aras River. Russian military intervention ultimately crushed the revolution's gains when forced by Russia to cede large portions of the Caucasus, modern Georgia, Armenia and Azerbaijan. This also extended into Central Asia in what is today modern Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. Iran also lost control over Herat, a historically significant city in Greater Iran, which was separated from Persia through British influence. These losses not only redefined Iran's borders, but also divided its Azeris population, with significant numbers ending up under Russian rule. Both British and Russian powers occupied Iran until 1946. Why? To secure supply routes and oil resources. Iran's oil industry had been dominated by the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, a British-controlled firm founded in Iran in 1909 after the discovery of a large oil field in Majed Solomon. Later, renamed the British Petroleum Company in 1954, it profited heavily from Iranian oil while returning meagre revenues to Iran. This situation stemmed from a series of oil concessions dating back to the early 20th century, which many Iranians saw as exploitative remnants of imperial influence. These experiences of economic concessions, territorial pressures and foreign interference builds Iranian history as a unique trajectory into a broader anti-colonial narrative by creating a strong anti-imperial consciousness. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, rising Iranian nationalism and frustration with foreign economic control created political momentum for reclaiming Iranian resources. Mohammad Mossadegh, a leader of the National Front and Prime Minister, articulated this sentiment by championing oil nationalisation as essential for true sovereignty over Iran's natural wealth. After the Majlis voted to nationalise oil in 1951, Britain responded with economic pressure and a blockade, the Abadan crisis, aiming to strangle Iran's economy and force a reversal. The movement became not just economic reform, but a broad nationalist and anti-imperialist cause, seen by many Iranians as reclaiming dignity and autonomy from former colonial-style domination. The oil nationalisation movement was a direct response to decades of foreign economic dominance and became a national symbol of resistance against neo-imperial control. Then, in 1953, British MI16 and US CIA intelligence orchestrated a coup to remove Mossadegh after he nationalised the oil industry and restore the Shah's power. This deepened Iranian distrust of Western intervention. Tensions between the US and Iran date as far back as February 1979, when the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile by invitation from the Iranian government. By the 11th of February, the Iranian monarchy was brought down and Khomeini assumed leadership, while troops overwhelmed the Pahlavi dynasty loyalists, leading to the death and executions of thousands of civilians and opposition figures. That same November, in response to the Ayatollah's criticism of US support for the Shah, the Iranian students stormed the US embassy in Tehran and seized its personnel as hostages. After reaching a stalemate in negotiations, the US formally severed all diplomatic relations with Iran by April 1980, and Operation Eagle Claw became a failed rescue attempt when a sandstorm caused the crash of one of the rescue helicopters and the death of 8 US soldiers. In January 1981, all remaining US hostages were finally released after Iran and Washington concluded the Algiers Accord, which unfroze Iranian assets, lifted US sanctions, and established a tribunal to adjudicate billions of dollars of financial claims between the two countries. After decades of strategic competition, On the 28th of February 2026, Israel's Operation Lion's Roar and the US's Operation Epic Fury launched coordinated strikes on Iranian territory. As a result, hundreds of military, defense and command targets were hit in Iranian cities including Tehran, Isfahan, Qom and Karaj, and the Iranian supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the strikes, along with some family members and senior military commanders. In retaliation, Iran launched missile and drone attacks against Israel and US military bases across the Gulf, including countries like Bahrain, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Turkey, and Kuwait. These actions have not only disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global oil transport, causing major economic and logistical disruptions, but Iranian-aligned militias and Hezbollah are engaged with Israeli forces in Lebanon and other regions, spreading the conflict beyond the initial Iranian border. Israel and Iran were once closer, so how did they evolve from friends into enemies? After the 1979 Iranian Revolution, relations deteriorated dramatically, and what followed was decades of conflict and indirect proxy wars, resulting in the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, which limited Iran's enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. After the US withdrew from the deal in 2018, Iran began to accelerate their nuclear enrichment, leading to US strikes on 3 nuclear facilities on the 22nd of June 2025. The US stated goals could be any one or all of preventing Iran from achieving nuclear weapons capability, degrade Iran's missile and military infrastructure, or encourage political change in Tehran's leadership to bring about regime change. While Israel's objectives are more clear, in attempting to eliminate what it considers an extremist threat from Iran's nuclear program and to stop support for armed groups hostile to Israel. Without the approval of US Congress or the UN, the conflict has no international backing and is a violation of international law. Due to this, it is unclear what the plan is, the endgame, and the exit strategy. And what were the intended consequences? I would like to think that the horrific bombing of a school by a US Tomahawk, causing the deaths of over 170 school children, staff and parents, was not one of them. So what of the other unintended consequences, affecting global markets and geopolitics through disrupting energy supplies, transport, and manufacturing? Is it a military exercise, or is it war? One thing is for sure, we will all be experiencing the consequences of this conflict now, in the foreseeable future, and for generations to come. If you like this podcast, then stay on this listening platform, click the subscribe button and check out my other episodes related to this one, such as Colonialism, Just a Thing of the Past, Parts 1 and 2 from the 2nd season, and In Search of a Peace That Is Noble from the 5th. And don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement, my stories or poetic narratives, Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change. These are all available on the website in paperback, on Amazon in Kindle format and in ebook format at Apple Books and all other digital platforms. Also, the publication of the latest 4 titles, Now, if you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platforms for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. And if you'd like to sign up to my email list, just visit the website where you can opt in and receive your free samples of my first 4 titles. And finally, remember that you can also send me an audio message on the SpeakPipe link, which is also in the show notes, so don't be a stranger. Feel free to like, follow and share us on social media when you visit the website. Just click onto whichever social media link you would like to follow us on. And, as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either continue or begin your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next page.